Hi, welcome to Future Fast. And once again, we have a very interesting guest. And many of you in Bangalore will surely know the guest today. And for the rest of you, before I bring in and introduce him, thank you so much for your feedback. We appreciate that you're following Future Fast. And once again, those of you who just download and consume videos, we appreciate it. But do subscribe to it. It goes a long way and better for us to, it's also a motivator for us. Well, with that, we have Srikanth Narasimhan today. And for the uninitiated, if I have to put it that way, that Srikanth is a politician today. And not just a politician, but also a founder of a political party, which is quite unique by itself, called Bangalore NavaNirmana Party. And we'll get Srikanth to talk more about it. And before we do that, this part of the podcast would be focused at his journey as what got him to become a politician. So with that, Srikanth, once again, thank you so much for agreeing to be part of Future Fast, and welcome to Future Fast.
Thank you, Ranju. Thank you for inviting me to your podcast. Happy to be here.
Wonderful. So Srikanth, so what got you started? I mean, maybe start from the start. Where did your journey begin?
My journey to becoming a politician is completely accidental. I remember there is this book called as The Accidental Prime Minister. You could call me as the accidental politician. I was actually just a guy leading a simple corporate life. Very interestingly, I'd never even voted in my life for many, many years. I used to hold a very strong view and a strong belief that voting is absolutely useless and meaningless because the choice is between the devil and the deep blue sea, as the cliche goes. So what's the point of voting? So from holding such a strong belief to ultimately founding a political party, asking people to join, support, and vote for us, I would say it's been an incredible transformation that even I had never anticipated in my life. So would you like me to take you through that journey of how it happened?
Yes, that would be. In fact, the only thing is, it's lucky that we are in India, and many countries this would have been a crime. So you couldn't even come out and say that I don't vote so happily and proudly. So yes, please, where did it all begin?
No, I want to be absolutely open about it. I never take a moral high ground or moral stance and say that I'm holier than thou. If I've been making some mistakes, I think I should own up to it, admit it, and it's all a learning experience that we all go through. So that's all there is to it. So I'll start off by saying that I'm the typical corporate guy. I studied at BITS Pilani, worked for a couple of years at Tata Motors, then went on to do my management from IIM Bangalore. After that, I've been in the financial services world, initially in firms like ICICI Venture, Ernst & Young, all blue chip firms, and subsequently went on to start my own firm along with my co-founders, a firm called Veda Corporate Advisors, through which we've been providing advisory services to a lot of corporates, helping them raise capital, mergers, acquisitions, private equity, venture capital.
Oh, is that still on?
Well, that's going on.
As in, you're still involved in the venture?
I'm not involved now in the venture. So ever since I started politics, I didn't want anything remote to impact any of my other things that I had started, including Veda Corporate Advisors, including Bangalore Apartments Federation. One of the first things that I did was to step down formally from all of these. Because
so
I
maybe a quick intro to BAF as well.
I will do that. In fact, BAF is one key milestone in this journey, in this transformational journey that has happened. So I'll definitely talk about that.
So you're saying without BAF, they would not be in a politician, Srikanth?
No.
Okay.
It all happened over a series of sequence of time through a series of events, and BAF has been a very, very important milestone in that journey. Yeah, if I had not started BAF, BNP definitely wouldn't have happened. So coming back, I co-founded Veda Corporate Advisors and pretty much been involved in that for many, many years along with my co-founders. We built it up. That firm continues to run, but as I said, I have stepped down. So, corporate journey over almost about 25 years of experience. I would say the first turning point that happened was actually the founding of BAF. I live in an apartment complex on Old Meadows Road. And when I was the secretary of my apartment complex way back in 2014, we started getting harassed by various civic agencies, BWSSB, Pollution Control Board, BBMP, with a series of completely illogical, unreasonable, unfair rules, regulations, some of which were even impossible to comply with. So that's when I felt that it was important for apartment residents to come together, apartment complexes to come together. And I started Bangalore Apartments Federation primarily to give voice to the lakhs and lakhs of apartment residents, primarily to fight against this harassment that was happening. There was a 300% water tariff hike, solid waste management cess was being imposed upon us, but the garbage itself was not being collected. Pollution Control Board started imposing lots of penalties, even though we were not involved in any violations whatsoever. Ultimately, they were just trying to find some scapegoats, and they wanted to be seen as showing some action. And which is the community that can be easily targeted? It's the apartment community.
And why do you think so?
I'm coming to that answer.
Yeah.
So I started going and meeting officials, ministers, politicians, and all of them invariably ended up saying the same thing. Not in so many words, but effectively amounting to that. They said, you guys living in apartment complexes, you are rich. You guys do not vote. You guys do not have any involvement in the system. So, whatever rules we impose on you, you better start following those. So, for them, whatever they were imposing on us, first of all, we just follow that, and ultimately we have that affordability to pay. So even if they impose some penalties, we'll end up paying that and then just getting on with our lives. And they also knew that since we were not a vote bank, it was not going to impact them electorally. So good, nice sitting ducks for them.
Well, incidentally, the community I live in, we had a case against a builder, and funnily, a High Court judgment, of course, it got reversed, but High Court judgment was the rich, frivolous residents of this apartment. Can you beat that? I mean, a passing remark, but even at what cost? The judge in a High Court could actually get away saying it.
Absolutely. So all these stereotypes have been done. At some point, it was almost like a situation where if you're living in an apartment, you're rich. If you're not living in an apartment, you're poor.
No, but this actually beats me. Where is this coming from? Even a judge thinking like that?
Some of these narratives are imposed upon us over a period of time. And I've realized that there's a lot of narrative building that happens. And there is, in fact, the government has been, I wouldn't say just the government, a whole host of these politicians, lobbies and all of that, they've been building up this narrative because they look at the apartment community as a milking cow for them. So the more you build up that narrative, you create that divide within that society. And you create that narrative where the people who are not living in apartment complexes also start thinking that, oh, these people living in apartments, they deserve to be punished types.
Right.
And that is how these narratives
so it gets justified. Their actions get justified if they paint us to be okay.
Not only do they get justified, the people start thinking that this is a fair system. Right? So I've been in the social circles now for a few years, and I realize how these narratives get built up. And I worked very hard after that to countering that narrative and ensuring that these kind of stereotypes don't get built. But coming back, that was a big enlightening moment for me when I realized that by not voting, when I say me, it's not just me. There are many people like me who live in apartment complexes who do not vote. And that was indeed the reality. The voting percentages in apartment complexes.
Where do you connect this? Why the people living in apartment don't vote? Why? Why do you think that people, if they are living in a independent house, would not think like that? Why do you think so?
Again, I think it's. I don't think people consciously do that. See, what happens is very often when you're living in an apartment complex, you're in your own cocoon. I wouldn't say you're disconnected from the rest of the world, but for example, I used to ask people, how many of you know that there was a BBMP election that happened in 2015 in which you could have voted? People didn't even know about it.
Well,
Conversely,
sorry,
when I went
my
out and I did a survey outside,
yeah.
you talk to the street vendors, shopkeepers, or the average person on the road, they will know what BBMP is, who a corporator is, when the election happens. Whereas people in apartment complexes, not that they don't want to vote, they are not even aware.
No, but my observation is the nearly 50% of our residents are, if I can put it as immigrant, as in they don't even carry a voting ID. I mean, they tend to carry the voter ID from their hometown, which is invariably a different state. They do aspire to go back, but they have many a times they have been here for even more than 5-10 years, but they have not,
Correct.
accepted the local citizenship from a point of even claiming right to vote. It's a right,
Voting
but
right
unless you
from
claim
that
it,
area.
so and they don't choose to claim, so
So,
they still regard themselves as
so you're talking
just
of,
passing through.
yeah. So
But
you're
that's a
talking of the
significant
30
population, right?
40% of the people. No, but you're talking of the 30 40% of the people who are not registered as voters here. I'm talking of the other 60 70% living in an apartment complex who are registered as voters here, but do not come out and vote. See, when we say voting percentage is low, that 30 40% who are not registered, anyway, they don't count in the sense that they are not even registered as voters here. But I'm saying out of the people who are registered here as voters, today in the BBMP limits, there are close to 80 lakh voters. It's a different issue that, let's say, about 10 to 15 lakh voters are those who have already moved out of the city. They no longer live here. The other problem also is there.
Correct.
There is at least 15-20% population of voters who have moved out, who should not be registered as voters here but are still there.
Yeah.
But I'm talking of these people who are registered as voters. Many of them do not go out and vote, primarily because many of them don't even know that there is something called as a BBMP election. Of
Or
course, in
is it
Lok
like
Sabha
what
election
you
and
thought,
assembly
deep
election, not.
CM, the devil? What's the point?
The other part is some of them or many of them do not vote because you don't have a good choice coming in. But I think lack of awareness itself is a big issue. And during the Lok Sabha election,
Srikanth,
Bangalore is very low. I tell you that the
Srikanth, your video is frozen. Audio is also stopped.
statistics are not by the election commission. Nanju, your video seems to have frozen and I'm not able to hear you now.
Yeah. Now you're back. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it is showing red on your side. So maybe I think your side, the signals are a bit weak. Okay, we can
Oh,
continue.
is that so? Okay. Is
Yeah.
it okay now?
Yeah, it's become yellow. I think we can continue.
No,
But yeah, it's not stabilized.
Yeah. There is this continuous narrative that gets built that people living in Bengaluru do not come out and vote even during the Lok Sabha and Assembly elections.
Mm-hmm.
And that's absolutely wrong.
I agree. Correct.
Now you might say that, oh, the statistic proves that our voting percentage is 55%, whereas rest of Karnataka is at 70 to 75%. And the reason why this statistic itself is wrong is because our electoral rolls are bloated.
Correct. And in fact, there were two entries in my name.
There were two entries in your name. So yeah, there you go. I would think that, let's say,
and both are next to each other.
Talking
same
of,
photograph, same name.
Let's say, totally right next to each other, right? So yeah. I would think that if there are 95 lakh people totally in the assembly constituencies of Bengaluru, I would say at least 20 lakhs out of these need to be removed.
No, but they can pretty much do it by tagging Aadhaar card, right? I mean, you have Aadhaar, you have compelled
it's
us
not
to
just
stitch
about.
it to everything else. So why not stitch it to others so that it becomes easy to filter out these duplicacies and even the dead and everybody?
We will discuss that separately. That is a
Okay.
separate discussion altogether. But the issue is not just about these duplicate entries, Nanju.
Okay.
It's also because of the floating population. In
Mm.
my apartment complex, we have been able to identify totally 103 people who are registered on the rolls. Out of that, 2 people passed away a few years back. Apart from that, 36 other people do not live in our apartment complex any longer.
Mm.
Out of these 36 people, only a few of them actually continue to live in Bangalore. Many of
Oh,
them have moved to other parts of the country.
or even
Some of them
outside.
have moved outside the country. Some of them are not even citizens of this country any longer.
Okay, so the list is clearly very old.
So, uh, for example, from my apartment complex, probably, let's say, 50 people would have gone out and voted. So, as per the official
It's
records, 50 out of
50%.
103 voted, which is 50%. But in reality, it's not 50 out of 103. It's 50 out of 60 or 65 people.
So pretty much 80-85% of voted.
Exactly. The voting percentage in Lok Sabha and Assembly elections is very high in apartment complexes.
Mm.
But in BBMP elections, it's still very low. In BBMP elections, the voting percentage goes down to 40%, which means in
But
reality, in BBMP elections, that voting percentage might be 60.
but what is the real trigger? Because this doesn't seem like a life-changing thing that compelled you to start a political party, right? What was that?
I'll come back to that. So let's come back. I think we digress quite a bit. So for me, the first turning point was when I realized that these guys were harassing us. I started Bangalore Apartments Federation, and Bangalore Apartments Federation took a life of its own. Today, BAF has almost about 1,300 apartment complexes across Bangalore, representing close to 10 lakh residents or citizens of this city. And today, many of them come out and vote. We are seen as a vote bank, and the government and all the officials, ministers, politicians, they do take us seriously. And
True.
for
Last
me,
2-3 elections, in fact, they have been coming and talking through back to the voters. So
and that took a few years to build up, right? Last 3-4 years, they have taken us really, really seriously, and all of that because it's built up as a large community.
and
So that was turning point number 1
honestly,
for
I
me.
think BAF is doing a good job. I mean, of course, more people have to get committed to that effort even as members, but it's doing a good job.
Thank you so much. So we'll quickly get on. Let me complete my story. But as I said, that video on my YouTube channel, I think it's a 12-minute video that sort of chronicles that journey quickly. But let me quickly summarize it for your benefit on this call. For me, there were 4 turning points that led me to becoming a politician from being a non-voter. Turning point number 1 was the founding of Bangalore Apartments Federation. Turning point number 2 was a protest that I had conducted through BAF against a very ridiculous rule where the government had asked old apartments to construct sewage treatment plants retrospectively, which was impossible to comply with. 1 year of arguing logically, fighting it out, nothing yielded results. Finally, I organized a protest on December 2nd, 2017, and more than 10,000 people, 10,000 apartment residents across the city came out and stood in a silent protest outside their respective communities in their respective areas. But that created headlines. And within 2 weeks, the government called us for a meeting. The Bengaluru Development Minister, the Home Minister, the Mayor, the BWSSB Chairman, pretty much the entire government machinery. So they called, I made a presentation. And what 1 year of reasoning, rationale, logic couldn't accomplish, one single protest got that done in a minute for us. Of course, 10,000 people had to come out.
So they needed to see the numbers on the street.
Exactly. That showed that people power always trumps political power and any kind of muscle power. That was another enlightening moment for me, that if people come together, that is the biggest strength that we all have. That was turning point number 2 for me. But even that did not lead me to the founding of a political party. I was very happy doing what I was doing in BAF, creating that impact. But then 2 other incidents happened, 2 other turning points that made me realize that we all have to get into the system. So that leads me to turning point number 3, which is a particular day in 2018 when I got a call from the president of an apartment complex in South Bangalore, where they, in their apartment, every single household was segregating garbage 100%. But the contractor who was coming to pick up the garbage, he used to mix up all the garbage and take it out. The residents started questioning, what is the point in me segregating if the guy is ultimately going to mix it and dump it in a landfill? And through BAF, I'd recommended them to go with professional agencies, and I'd given them a few contacts also. So they wanted to go with a professional agency which picks up the different types of waste with different trucks and dispose it in a very environment friendly manner, even though it was at a higher cost. And the moment they decided to go with that, they got a call from the husband of the corporator of the ward. That ward had a lady corporator, but as we all know, lady corporators are mere proxies. Their husbands run the show. This guy called and said, if you move from this contractor to a new professional contractor, I will ensure 3 things happen. Number 1, I will get the road in front of your home dug up. Number 2, I don't know whether your apartment is in compliance or not, but I'll get the pollution control board to issue notices to you with penalties running into lakhs of rupees. And number 3, in your apartment complex, the khata has still not been transferred from the builder to the individual homes. I will ensure that it doesn't get done. And it was something that was amazing. And I told the president, don't succumb to these demands, don't succumb to these kinds of threats. The reason why I started BAF is for us to fight together on this. And he was convinced. He had seen us do the protest and all. But after that, when he discussed with his managing committee, they collectively took a decision that they don't want to antagonize this guy, because BAF, we don't know what it is. The corporator, the husband of the corporator, the gundas, they are local, they are the reality. We don't know what they will do. So they decided to go back to their old contractor who was going to mix up all the waste and dump it in a landfill. That was a blood boiling moment for me. We as citizens, we as apartment residents, we are doing our bit to contribute to the sustainability and well-being of our city. Not only are the elected representatives not doing their job, they are actively working towards destroying whatever little we are doing as well. It was a big turning point for me. It didn't lead me to start BNP at that time, but I think it was a big contributor in hindsight. And the 4th and the most important turning point was something that happened right in front of my apartment complex. I told you I live on Old Madras Road in CV Raman Nagar. Way back in 2018, one incident happened. But prior to that, we had been asking the MLA and the corporator for a skywalk. Asking for a skywalk at the junction where my apartment complex is, because it's a very hazardous place to cross the road. And despite our repeated requests, nothing happened. Sometime in 2018, a 17-year-old girl who was trying to cross the road got run over by a bus when trying to cross the road at the junction. A life lost in a millisecond. And I wouldn't put it down to an accident at all, because this was a disaster that was waiting to happen. And we were crying hoarse about it. And even after an incident of this magnitude happening, after that, we again went to the MLA and the corporator. They were just not interested in doing anything. Then we had to undertake a protest in that area. And the moment a protest happens, a budget appears out of thin air. Then a budget got sanctioned. The road on both sides of the road got dug up for the project. But within a month or 2, the project came to a grinding halt. Again, we ran from pillar to post trying to ask what was happening. And finally, we got to know that the MLA had stopped the project and was not allowing it to move forward. Then finally, Bangalore Mirror we reached out to the media, and Bangalore Mirror carried an article, and it had the what corporator getting officially quoted, and it is still there in the public domain. If you actually do a Google search on Beniganhalli Skywalk, you will come across that article where it quotes the what corporator saying that the project was stopped by an influential or a senior politician who wanted to discuss something with the contractor. And that something is a bribe that he wanted. He did not allow the project to happen without a bribe being paid. We were all shocked. And not only are they stopping the project, they are openly claiming that this is what it is, this is who we are, go do whatever you want. That's the time I realized that politics and governance has become dirty, not just because we elected all these bad people in, it's also because we, the good people, people like you and me, chose to stay out of it. And that's when I said enough is enough is enough. It's time for good citizens also to get into the system and start bringing about the change from the inside. Enough of crying horse, enough of blaming all these politicians who we all know are incompetent, corrupt, inefficient, and relying on them is not going to get anything done. That is what led me to the founding of Bengaluru NavaNirmana party. That is what led me to quit my corporate life also, to say, I have done whatever I needed to do in my corporate life. Let's focus on at least giving back some of it back to the society, at least through Bengaluru NavaNirmana party. So this is the journey.
That was 2016.
No, this was 2019. 2016 was BAF. Then some of these incidents happened in 2018, later part of initial part of 2019. I started Bengaluru NavaNirmana party on September 22nd, 2019. Right. And by the way, the skywalk construction that was on hold for almost about 2 years.
Right. Well, how easy or difficult was it to get a buy-in from your family?
Extremely difficult. My wife, even now, she's not very happy with what I'm doing, but she realizes that this is my passion, this is what I want to do. So she provides all the support, but she's not obviously very happy. But then in my family circles, I've now, I think, convinced people that the politics that is there today is not what we had in the 80s, 90s, and so on. In today's day and age, in the day of social media, digital, and so on, it's not easy for these guys to come and threaten us and get away with it. In fact, one of our youngsters in one of the ward committee meetings got threatened, saying, we know what BNP is, we know who Srikanth is, we know who you are. Don't come to these ward committee meetings and ask questions. They geared him, actually. And that happened because the ward committee meetings are typically supposed to happen on a Saturday morning. And these guys were seeing that a lot of us were going and asking questions. So smartly what they did was they started pushing it to Tuesday. They will just send a last minute notice saying that the meeting is shifted from Saturday to Tuesday.
Correct.
Tuesday, many of us cannot attend. But at least we ensure that 1 or 2 people attend. This guy attended one of those meetings. He was geared out by some of these political party workers. He was rattled. But then after that, I knew one of those guys from that party. I called that guy and I said, guys, the next time you get out any of my teammates, I will ensure that it is taken on video. I'll put it out on social media and make it go viral. And you guys will not know what hit you. He said, no, he was coming and asking questions. What do you mean he was coming and asking questions? Their ward committee meeting is meant for exactly that purpose. And I said, what question he's asking? He came and asked, Anganwadi, books is not... I said, he's not asking that question. I had asked him to ask that question. In that Anganwadi, the children were not getting the books. Where else do we go and ask those questions? No, he doesn't live near that Anganwadi. How does it matter to you whether he lives near the Anganwadi or not? Is it from this ward? He said, yeah. Is he living in that ward? Yeah. Then, no, he came in a traffic warden dress. He's a traffic warden. He finished his traffic warden duty on that day. He came. They're asking, they're sort of coming up with all kinds of excuses. But finally, I closed it out by saying, if you do anything nonsense like this in the future, all that I will do is I'll take it on a video, I'll put it on social media. The next ward committee meeting happened on a Saturday. There were about 7 or 8 of us. They reserved front seats for us. They said, come and sit and ask whatever questions you want. So the point I'm making is, in 80s and 90s, we couldn't have gotten away with that. Right? There was no social media, there was no digital, we couldn't have taken videos, etc. So which means this would have died a natural death. But in today's day and age, it's not possible for these guys to do nonsense and get it. Having said that, I also asked my team not to go asking for trouble or seeking trouble. But when we are doing our job, if somebody tries to interfere or tries to create this ruckus, we know how to respond to that also. With that, we've been building up our teams. More and more people are joining. More and more people like you and me are coming on board. Those guys are feeling the heat. Today, over the last 5 months, through our teams, we have raised more than 500 civic issues across different wards, small, medium, and large, and we have resolved more than 50% of those.
Well, I want
That's the power of people coming together, working out.
Correct. I want to dig on that in the next part. Just before we close, I just want to ask, how was the reaction from your peers, in the industry, your batchmates or colleagues, partners, or even customers? You probably had to talk to all of them, right? You're just stepping out. You're an entrepreneur. It was just not about resigning a job.
The response was unequivocally extremely positive.
Oh, is it?
People were very impressed, very amazed, and provided all the support. Particularly because Bengaluru NavaNirmana party, I started it as India's first and only political party with a focus exclusively on one city, that is Bengaluru, and not just a focus on one city, but a focus on its municipal governance, which is the one that has been completely neglected so far. Which means BNP, we are focused only on civic issues. We do not take a stance on national or state level issues. We do not take a stance on hijab, Citizenship Amendment Act, Farmers Act, India-China policy, India-Pakistan policy. There are enough and more political parties and politicians fighting on it, fighting over it. But when it comes to our civic issues, our potholes, our roads, drains, skywalks, paths, playgrounds, lakes, there's nobody to think about it, discuss about it, work on it, focus on it, and find solutions. And that's all that we do at BNP. And through BNP, I'm looking to rope in citizens who will contest as corporators. We will not be contesting in the MP or MLA elections. We'll be contesting only in the BBMP elections. I want to get citizens elected as corporators and bring about good grassroots governance. And whenever I talk about this story or this philosophy and ideology, it resonates with every single person. And hence, there is a significant level of support that comes in. So not only are people happy with what I want to do, people are coming out to provide support financially, spread the message, spread it in their networks, and provide all support that they can give. So that's what has kept me going as well. Even though it's a political party, it's been a resounding yes and a resounding support from all through the system that I've been connected with.
Wonderful. Well, Srikanth, thank you so much. In fact, you got it up to BNP and also perhaps what it's been contributing as a political party to the community as well. I really urge all our listeners and audience, look up the links given below this podcast. Not just follow Srikanth, look up BNP. And if you're from Bengaluru, and you have personal stake in terms of either you've been a Bangalorean and outside of it today, you need to stay connected with BNP in your own interest. Well, with that, thank you so much, and come back soon because we're going to have some more conversation with Srikanth. And please do share this conversation with all those who you think need to hear this and also appreciate it. Thank you so much once again. Srikanth, thank you once again for sharing your journey also.
No, absolutely my pleasure, Nanju.